So I use a 5-piece drum set, but this could readily be applied to a 4-piece drum set or however many accoutrements you might have. But I had a student ask me, well, Jeff, I've been studying with you for a while. You know, I know some beats and I can play some different styles, etc. But how do I get around the drums? And so, well, I don't know, let me think about that. And I remembered an Alan Dawson exercise where there was some clockwise and counterclockwise motion using single-stroke rolls around the drums. But since I had 4 drums, I sort of extrapolated a 3-drum exercise to a 4-drum exercise, and it became very symmetrical. And then just by using the 4 possible combinations of clockwise and counterclockwise motion around the drum set, I came up with a set of 16 exercises that I think are a lot of fun to play. And since it's just singles, you can warm up with it. So 4 of these movements, counterclockwise with the right hand, clockwise with the left, clockwise with the right hand, counterclockwise with the left, counterclockwise with both hands, or clockwise with both hands, applying single strokes to the 4 surfaces here. So let me try that. I thought these were intriguing sort of quasi-melodic things, and then started being interested in changing the sticking so we could go into any number of things. Initially, I thought a paradiddle-diddle, because it's relatively simple to play, would fit nicely with this. So. Use each of the 16 possibilities in that way. You can do double stroke rolls, inverted double stroke rolls. You can start combining various sticking patterns, 4-stroke roughs, etc., with the bass drum integrated into it. So if I were to use that same idea, possibilities that way. Let's see. particular with the paradiddle-diddle coming from here. Which sort of reminds me of my favorite Motown fill, which is also an inverted paradiddle-diddle, in this case, right, left, left, right, right, left. I'm not sure that this is the way they sticked it, but it sounded like that to me. Those kind of uses of just moving around the drums and incorporating paradiddle-diddles. And then, and you can do each of those 16 possibilities using that sticking as well. But paradiddle-diddles have always been a favorite of mine, particularly since playing Alan Dawson's Rudimental Ritual. He had a segment of 2 paradiddle-diddles and a paradiddle, which reminded me of Melodic or any number of drummers who played these type of things, where there would be 3 accents on the right and 3 accents on the left. So that was something that intrigued me. But also by using the paradiddle-diddle as a triplet, and you can find all sorts of inversions. There are 12 different ways to turn the paradiddle-diddle inside out. And there's a little exercise I was trying to do. I usually do everything 4 times because I like to try to engender 4-bar concept for phrasing for my students. If you think of 12-bar blues of 3 4-bar phrases, if you think of 32-bar AABA, standard American song form, for 8-bar phrases, almost everything comes in groups of 4. So that's why I try to do everything 4 times. So here is an exercise using the possible inversions of the paradiddle-diddle, where I would put the single strokes on the toms and the double strokes on the snare. Paradiddle-diddles as a beat to sort of a halftime kind of 16th note triplet pulse. We could do it either right or left-handed. I think playing it left-handed gives us more possibilities on the hi-hat, where we would play left, right, left, left, right, right, and every other time play the first note on the snare drum. Or over on the right side. teach an initial sort of quote-unquote independence version using an inversion of paradiddle diddle, which is right, left, left, right, left, right. Paradiddle-diddles. And what more can I say about those things? So there are 12 different ways of playing those, and that sort of got me started into thinking, well, any rudiment you can turn inside out, and Stone presented the single paradiddle with number 5 through 8 on the first page of stick control. And just by using those to introduce a sort of funk idiom to students, it's something that's readily available for them to play. And you could make a single exercise out of those 4, 5 through 8 in stick control. But it's just, if you separate your hands and you hear what each hand is doing. So let me try that. This is with the bass drum accompanying the right foot. The bass drum right foot accompanying the right hand is what it is. Anybody early today? Coffee? Yes. So we have this. Okay, well, the single paradiddle, what as moving it around to different sound sources. If I were to use different numbers of sound sources for those stickings, say, assign the ride cymbal on the floor tom to the right hand and the hi-hat and the snare drum to the left hand, and use those 4 versions of the single paradiddle. And you get this kind of thing. Increase the number of sound sources for each hand. Because if we play 2 paradiddles, each hand will have 3 different sound groupings, note groupings. So if I assign 3 notes or 3 sound sources to the right hand and still 2 with the left, we get something like this. ways. If we just do 3, it's very symmetrical, of course, but whereas if we put 4 on one hand and 3 on the other, hand, that would really be weird, but that's okay. That's better than weird. So there are various possibilities just using our available sound sources here. And I thought, well, wait a second. What if we were to play paradiddles as triplets? And that seems to be a perplexing thing for many kids to learn. It's because of the 8-note sequence being played in a 3-note pulse is sometimes throwing people. So I tried to figure out little melodic lines using paradiddles as triplets. First, separating the hands. Possibilities of moving things around using paradiddles as triplets and using the 4 inversions of the paradiddle in that triplet sequence. Which brought me to, I've heard 2 different names. I was first introduced these as windmills, the single windmills and double windmills, but just basically a paradiddle with a flam on the diddle, which I was told was a Swiss rudiment. And for some reason, to me, Switzerland and Africa are somehow connected. If I play single flam mills, see the characteristic rhythms that each hand is playing. Okay, what I hear with the right hand, and also with the left, but a beat later, is 2 groups of 2 notes and 1 group of 1 note with rests in between. So we have this. Move. So with a single flam mill, just a regular sticking, then you have the 4 different placements of the flam. So you have this. So you can move those around so you get different sounding rhythms by, if I put the flam on the second note. Kind of 3-3-2 bass drum beat. And with the 4th inversion, single flam mills. They thought, well, we play paradiddles as triplets. Let's play single flam mills as triplets. Still single flam mills, a 4-note figure, but over a 3-note pulse. And so I sort of fell in love with those. I don't know what the hell you would do with this stuff, but it's pretty fun. I use it for warming up or for, well, I like the melodic component of it. Now, the first Swiss rudiment I ever learned was the Swiss Army triplet, and since I have a particular fondness for New Orleans music, the Swiss Army triplet just fits really nicely into that. Of course, not as triplets, but as 8th notes or 16th notes. Once again, we have 3 different inversions or 6 different inversions of Swiss Army triplets. We have the first note, the second note, the third note, the right hand, the left hand, etc. So we have this. Play 4 Swiss Army triplets as 8th notes and 2 single strokes as quarter notes. Well, so that part and hi-hat part that I got from a Dr. John record called Gumbo, this drummer named Freddie Staley, who was a fantastic New Orleans drummer. I think he still probably plays around New Orleans, but he's kind of under the radar. Did this bass drum hi-hat combination that was sort of like this. Versions of it. Or left-handed. So you have some possibilities there, and of course with these things you can move them all around the drum. Etc. So you can use Swiss Army triplets in a lot of different ways as well. Not to mention just using them as a shuffle and sort of jazz ride shuffle study of so the Swiss Army triplets. I also have the double paradiddle, which was another source of intrigue. So we have, for two double paradiddles, you have 5 different note groupings with rests in between. How handy, I have 4 drums and a cymbal. Wow, okay, well that will make it pretty easy for a double paradiddle to move around. So. I figured out a 5-note grouping sort of displacement with the left hand also, which sounds all right just by itself. If I combine that with the ride cymbal. To use those 5 possibilities with the right hand, and you can start at any place that you have available to you and play that sort of L-shaped pattern with the left hand. See how that works out. some possibilities of double paradiddles. And are there any questions at all so far about what I've presented? Because, you know, I don't have any answers. Now, Fred Johnson is here somewhere. Oh, yes, the red shirt. Well, I have some sacrilege for you, Fred.
I can.
Three camps?
Yes! Thank you. You can't name that. Okay, good. I'm glad I stumped the mother of all three camps. Anyway, it's not, okay,
Again.
well.
A little faster.
Yeah.
And then we'll all understand.
I'm just learning, come on. Anyway, my hat's off to you for the intensive research that you've done on the first rudimental piece that I ever learned. So, but that was last year. Yeah, I know. If I played it faster, it would have sounded better and perhaps more recognizable. But so, just saying that you can take any particular rudiment and put it on the drum set and use your imagination using different numbers of sound sources, etc., and come up with some interesting things. Now, a lot of possibilities of integrating the bass drum in that sort of thing also, and that was the reason. I know John Riley has part of his DVD, Master Drummer, investigated rolling in triplets between the left hand and the right foot intensively. This is another thing that sort of confuses people at first, including myself. But I'll work that up, Fred. Possible inversions of the double stroke roll in between the right foot and left hand. And it wouldn't necessarily be confined to a jazz context. developing the double stroke roll as triples, you can find a lot of possibilities on that on the drum set as well. And then interspersing the single and double strokes between the snare drum and bass drum. Here's an exercise using half note, quarter note, eighth note, and 16th note triplets between the left hand and right foot, which starts as single strokes and then comes around as double strokes, hopefully. We'll see. It's early yet. I played that way too fast for the 16th note triplets to work out. So I better retard. It sounds fine until it starts flamming, but you want to make sure you get enough separation in there. Which I don't have this morning, but you know, the separation kind of incrementally increases as the day goes on. Anyway, that having to do with practice. Okay. So after a brief pause. Those 16th note triplets just aren't working with me this morning. Well, don't clean it up as the day goes on. Check with me later, like tomorrow at 3. Just kidding. Anyway,
hope you're on the road home.
So let's talk about flam taps. Flam taps are a great exercise for ride cymbal development. We have both right, both left, or right flam right, left flam left. Place them over here. Just for up-tempo ride cymbal exercises, because you're playing 3 out of 4 notes with each hand, and you can invert them however you want to play. I just had them right-handed because it sounded better on the hi-hat, but played them with left-hand lead, of course. And flam accents. Now, to me, flam accents are another thing that loans itself to sort of New Orleans, anything like with 3/4 polyrhythm sort of seems to fit well with that. But you can also derive a jazz waltz from a flam accent. So flam accents are very handy. Flam paradiddles, a little too busy to really play a song with, because it's 1 and 4 sequence of notes. But if you separate hands, so that's a possibility there too. Flam cues, isn't the most modern rudiment, Fred, is the flam cue the last one? I hear a shuffle in there with some quarter note triplets over top of it. Or you can play it the other way. shuffle and you want a triplet over top of it, then resort to flamitudes. Geez, four-stroke rough. Now, four-stroke rough, I heard a clinic at PASIC a number of years ago. I think it was in Atlanta in '94 or something. It was talking about not thinking of a four-stroke rough as four single strokes, but rather as a set of interlocking double strokes, where instead of left, right, or right, left, right, left, we just think of left, left, right, right, and put them in there. So we would just have this, and just put them in between each other. So just as a series of doubles. I could never play single strokes that fast, but because it's just throwing down a double, then it makes it much easier. Once again, I mean, you don't want it to sound like two flams, but so that concept of throwing the accents, I was actually, I had heard about that for a number of years. Everybody hears about bowler technique, etc. But a book called Wrist Twisters by Buster Bailey, Eldon Buster Bailey, who played with the New York Philharmonic for 42 years and taught at Juilliard for 25 years, has this book called Wrist Twisters, where he's using one stroke plus two rebounds to get symbol. I think Elvin Jones was very famous for accenting the skip note of the ride, the second note of the three. And for Latin applications and rock applications, accenting the third note of the three. And then everybody's accented the first note of the three. So just thinking of those three strokes, the stroke and the two rebounds, and accenting each of those gives you an interesting ride symbol exercise. So, and I learned through a posthumous tribute by his wife in the New York Times that Buster Bailey's favorite type of music was circus music. And then every year he would go to see the Barnum and Bailey or Ringling Brothers Circus in New York and watch the drummer intensely. And one time the drummer took ill, and Buster Bailey had the opportunity to sit in with the circus band, and his wife said that was the highlight of his career. To him, that was it. After playing with Bernstein and all these wonderful things with the New York Philharmonic, his actual real moment was sitting in with the circus band. So that was fascinating to me. You never can tell what genre people will prefer. So, are there any questions about anything that I've given you here today? I still have 10 minutes, so I know that we don't have to think about that. Anything that you would like to hear applied to the drum set? Yes?
It sounds a lot like your ideas are similar to a lot of the stuff that Royal Hardigan did for his research in West African music. Are you familiar with this?
I love Royal Hardigan. He's a graduate, an alumnus of St. Michael's College up in Burlington, and he comes up periodically to do clinics and stuff, and came up with Fred Ho and his Asian ensemble, and I've had a chance to talk to Royal a number of times.
Yeah.
his West African Rhythms for Drumset is a wonderful book. And I think he's the most humble person I've ever met. I really had to talk to him for about an hour to try to get him just to sign his book, because he doesn't endorse the cult of celebrity in New York society has fallen into. But does he have various placements and things like that? Is it?
Yeah, it seems pretty much. I used to go see him sometimes when he was at Wesleyan, when he was doing his postdoc work there and stuff, it seemed. And it was, what struck me as interesting, we were playing some of these patterns that I think everybody thought sounded great, and you said, well, I don't know where you ever use these things, and I thought, actually, we're going to play 3 sets of those things, you know? I think it sounds great. It's really, really nice ideas when they get, and the permutations of them around sound so musical, and I'd like to hear it get extended, you know? It sounds like, I think sometimes in a more free way, Jack DeJohnette's done that kind of thing. We just get lots of little things happening, but it just keeps going with it. So I thought it sounded beautiful, and just to hear them get extended more would just be fascinating. I think.
Oh, one other
more
thing.
More future there than you think. Boy, I think that sounds great.
One other thing that I forgot to mention was the double flammed mill, which is the double paradiddle with the flam on the diddle. And of course, you can turn these inside out 6 different ways as well. But separate those. How many of you will recognize that as West African Bembe 6/8, 12/8? So I thought, wow, what the hell can I do? Because, once again, Switzerland, Africa, yeah, I mean, where do you go with these things? Why? I mean, the world is round. We're all connected. And through music, we've discovered that connection and extrapolated. And I know that I've really enjoyed just researching these things and finding these connections that I didn't know existed, and having some fun on the drums at the same time. Oh, one other thing. The 5-stroke flammed roll. Okay, so what if I started it on the second note? Stroke flammed roll. Really? Thought it was jazz. No, you're playing rudiments. Yes, you're playing rudiments. So there are all kinds of things inside these rudiments that I have used just in my teaching and also in my playing. and tying them in with New Orleans, tying them in with Africa. Of course, you can't mention New Orleans without mentioning the influence of Africa. And the West African rhythms that have come over to all the Western Hemisphere as a result of very tragic events. We are the recipients of a beautiful wealth of music and how everything has come together. So, anything else? Anybody have any observations, questions, anything? Feel free to speak to me afterwards, and thank you very much.